Hi, I'm Charlie and back, and I'm feeling 64 today. Mario Kart 64!
Mario Kart 64 was the Nintendo 64's attempt at Mario Kart, which at this point in time had only been attempted on the SNES with Super Mario Kart. Lots of racing games were available on the Nintendo 64, but Mario Kart 64 always stood out against the crowd. It was the ultimate party game to play on the Nintendo 64, and it became the basis of what Mario Kart always is to this day. Unlike Super Mario Kart, this game only has 16 tracks. Unlike Super Mario Kart, which has 20 tracks.
But
if we look at the 20 tracks in Super Mario Kart, being 4 versions of Mario Circuit, 3 versions of Bowser's Castle, 3 versions of Donut Plains, 3 versions of Ghost Valley, having 16 completely original tracks in Mario Kart 64 is kind of a blessing in disguise. Each track is separated into 4 different cups: the Mushroom Cup, Flower Cup, Star Cup, and Special Cup. And each cup gets harder and harder, leading up to the final track of the Special Cup, Rainbow Road. Although Mario Kart 64 is more of a multiplayer game, having multiple harder and harder tracks creates a sense of completion after getting first in every single track, making this game a good game to return to no matter who you are. There's also several speeds you can choose between with 50cc, 100cc, and 150cc, which although makes the game harder and harder and almost works as a difficulty selection, it also makes the game faster and faster, but don't expect to hit F-Zero speed racing.
now I don't know why you're expecting that.
We begin with Luigi Raceway. Luigi Raceway being the very first track in the Return to Mario Kart is a very interesting choice, but it's a choice nonetheless. The track is a simple loop around a racecourse, with nothing really of note besides from all the sponsors that this track has. Yeah, this Mario game includes a bunch of fictional companies that are across some of the tracks to make it seem like this game is actually the Grand Prix of the world instead of you playing Mario Kart 64 on the Nintendo 64 in the comfort of your own home, contemplating what life really is. Moo Moo Farm. What's Moo Moo Farm got? A bunch of cows, not to be confused with Moo Moo Meadows, which is a completely different track that first appeared in Mario Kart Wii. Moo Moo Farms is another track that's just a loop with a few bridges driving through a very basic looking field with a few cows around. It's interesting comparing this to Moo Moo Meadows, as I think Moo Moo Meadows is what Moo Moo Farms was supposed to be.
How many times can you say moo moo in a minute?
Koopa Troopa Beach is where things get interesting. Koopa Troopa Beach has you driving alongside a beach, allowing you to go into the water slightly, with a few boost platforms to try and fly into the air. It's a bit of a unique track compared to the previous 2 tracks, and shows that maybe, just maybe, the tracks in Mario Kart 64 can be something completely different, something we've never seen in a Mario Kart game before. Kalahari Desert is the next track on that list, and taking its name from Kalahari, a desert in southern Africa, this is a track that introduces something really interesting that we see throughout the rest of the game. There is stage obstacles, specifically in this level. There's a train that can drive past, making the track somewhat more interesting. The track is also much more interesting than just a loop, with a few U-turns and more interesting turns to make this track a great ending to what was already a great introduction into Mario Kart 64. In Mario Kart 64, there's a mechanic known as rubber banding. When a character isn't on screen, an AI, which is the other characters, can gain an immense amount of speed to make sure that the characters are not too far behind you. And they're also immune to some items and obstacles. It makes it like the characters cheat.
And no one wants Donkey Kong doping.
The Flower Cup has a lot more unique tracks compared to the Mushroom Cup, giving us a track on a busy road, in the snow, on a mountain, and on a racetrack. Toad's Turnpike takes you up and down hills on a busy road in the shape of a figure 8. There's trucks, cars, and more, taking the singular level obstacle that was the train in Kalahari Desert and timesing it by 10. Frappe Snowland. This track is the first snow level in Mario Kart. There are so many snow levels throughout Mario Kart, but I'd have to say that this is one of the better ones. However, this game just has a much better snow track than this one we haven't even touched on yet. This track is alright, yeah, but some of the future tracks are just so much better. Choco Mountain is pretty boring. A lot of this track is just brown. It has a bunch of caves, a bunch of hills, but basing an entire level about having chocolate mountains, it's pretty boring all things considered. I do like the actual layout of the track itself. It's a lot more unique than some of the other tracks throughout this game, but man, I really wish this cup would have some more interesting tracks. And the final track, Mario Raceway, is exactly the same. Mario Raceway is pretty much identical to what Luigi Raceway was, but replaces Luigi with Mario. A much more interesting track that has this type of style is followed up in the next cup. Now the Star Cup is where things finally get interesting. Finally, after playing some of the most meh levels in the entire game, you get to the interesting courses that feels like the entire game was built around. Wario Stadium. God damn. Wario Stadium is the start of the stadium tracks that appear throughout Mario Kart. Hell, this isn't even the only track in Mario Kart that's called Wario Stadium. This track is all about tricks. The whole trick thing works a lot better in the other games when they bring this track back. Oh wait, they don't? This is the only track from Mario Kart 64 that has never been brought back whatsoever. Why? Probably because there's another track called Wario Stadium and it would just get too confusing. This track would have been so cool to see return. I don't know why it hasn't. Please Nintendo, I would just love to see this track come back. Sherbet Land. This is the one I was talking about. Remember when I said that other snow level was pretty meh and there was a much better one?
No, I was busy dreaming about Super Mario Bros. 2.
God damn, I do that a lot. Well, this is that better level. Over on one side for the outside sections, you always have the threat of falling into the ocean. It seems scary at first, but it makes this level feel so much more open. The problem with a lot of these tracks is they just feel so enclosed, like there's nothing around you, and this level just fixes that. And then the cave?
Don't get me started on the cave.
This is one of the best tracks in this entire game and I'm not here to tell you otherwise. Royal Raceway. This is again the other track I was talking about when I compared it to those silly little Mario and Luigi tracks. This takes the idea of having an actual raceway, as this track puts it, and makes it great. This level is so good, you can actually see Princess Peach's castle. Yes, the one you see in Super Mario 64 in this track and drive up to it. What a cool addition. It shows that all of these games are connected, even if they're ever so slightly connected. Royal Raceway did something right, and the next track is even better.
Is it?
Any Bowser's Castle to me is an instant snooze fest. So this one better be good. Bowser's Castle, not to be confused with Bowser Castle 1, Bowser Castle 2, Bowser Castle 3, Bowser's Castle 1, Bowser's Castle 2, Bowser's Castle 3, Bowser's Castle 4, Bowser's Castle, Bowser's Castle, Bowser's Castle, Bowser's Castle, Bowser's Castle, RMX Bowser's Castle 1, Bowser's Castle, Bowser's Castle, or Bowser's Castle is a level that takes place in Bowser's Castle.
Oh really? How could you have figured that one out?
It's a staple of Mario Kart. You gotta have Bowser's Castle. This track is one of the more boring Bowser's Castles. It's a simple castle where you go through said castle and that's about it. It's pretty boring, and I think a really boring way to end the Star Cup. If we wanted it to be more interesting, we would have gone to Bowser's Castle, not Bowser's Castle. DK's Jungle Parkway is an interesting one. This level is based on jungle hijinks from Donkey Kong Country, and I think it works really well. Having a Donkey Kong level in this game was pretty bold, considering there was another Donkey Kong kart racer coming out soon, but I think this was one of the best tracks in the entire game. Yoshi Valley is another interesting one. I have no clue as to what this level is supposed to be. What's it got to do with Yoshi besides from the massive Yoshi egg? I have no idea, but what I do know is it's still a fun level, all things considered. This level has you going around in a random order around random parts of the track, with you having no idea where the hell you are until you make your way back to the finish line to do the next lap. It's a fun level, yes, and having no idea where the hell you are is also fun and a great gimmick, but I don't really understand why it's Yoshi themed. It probably would have been better to be Donkey Kong themed, but hey, that's just me. Banshee Boardwalk. There's really not that much to say. It's a bunch of bridges with a random house in the middle. It's a pretty boring track overall. And if it wasn't for the following track, this cup would be pretty mid, all things considered. And hey, let's talk about the cup itself for a second. Mario Kart 64 was one of the few games to be released in China on something known as the iQ Player. iQ was, and still kinda is, a name that Nintendo uses in China to sell their products, with it all starting with the iQ Player. It was a sort of service structure where it was a Nintendo 64, but in order to get the games you needed to buy them online, and some of the games had things changed in them in order to come out in China, as they had a pretty strict ban against video games. And sometimes Nintendo changed the name of the games because, I don't know, why not? Super Mario 64 was just known as Super Mario, and Mario Kart 64 was just known as Mario Kart, making it the only game in the entire Mario Kart franchise to just be called Mario Kart. Kinda weird. However, in this version of the game, the special cup was known as the IQ Cup. Why? Who knows? Maybe it was to make things more interesting, but that's what they did. This was the same in Mario Kart Super Circuit. Although Mario Kart Super Circuit never came out on the IQ iQ Game Boy Advance, there was a prototype made that also replaced the Special Cup in that game to be the iQ Cup. No other Mario Kart games have come out in China since under the iQ branding, so none of the other cups were changed. Now finally, what we've all been waiting for. Rainbow Road. This game's Rainbow Road is incredible. From the music to the design, everything about this Rainbow Road just feels magical. It makes you feel like you've earned something. Hey, I know you've just played through almost this whole game, so this track is just making you feel like it was all worth it. It may have been hard. You may have not been able to truly experience everything this game had to offer, but now you have a stroll down this magical Rainbow Road.
And that's really what it feels like for the first lap. Anyway.
This track just goes on forever. 3 laps? Each lap is 2 minutes each? What the hell? I know you want me to experience the magic, but this goes on forever. There's a reason why, technically in Mario Kart 8, this Rainbow Road is just 1 lap. Not 3. That would take literally forever.
Mario Kart 64 was the best Mario Kart at the time. Granted, all you have to compare it to is Super Mario Kart, but this one really blows it out of the water. This is a fantastic game with even more fantastic tracks, but what really hinders it is the lack of difference between some of the tracks. And maybe that was impossible at this point in time, putting it on the Nintendo 64 and all, but my god, it's a bit boring after a while. If I ever want to go back to classic Mario Kart, I'll just stick to Mario Kart Double Dash. Hello? I have my snow appointment now. Gotta go!